Welcome to the Working Tools Podcast, where today will be part 2 of our interview with Most Worshipful Brother Roger Nelson.
Ladies and gentlemen, brethren all, welcome to the Working Tools Podcast, a casual conversation around Freemasonry. First, it's important to note that our thoughts and opinions are our own and do not reflect those of our Grand Lodge or respective craft or concordant bodies. Please connect with us and ask questions via our website at theworkingtoolspodcast.com.
Today on the Working Tools Podcast, we have 3/4 of our usual host. Stephen couldn't be here this evening, but we have Brother Craig Graham from Kalamalka Lodge number 160 in Vernon, British Columbia. Very worshipful Brother David Colbeth from King Solomon number 60 in Auburn, Washington. I'm Matt Appel. I'm a member of Mill Creek 243 up here in Montlake Terrace, Washington. And we are honored to have with us again Most Worshipful Brother Roger B. Nelson Jr., Grand Master of the Most Worshipful Grand Lodge of Free and Accepted Masons of Washington. Most Worshipful Sir, thank you for being here.
Thank you. It's an honor.
So we followed our usual, our pseudo outline that we try to follow for our episodes. And our last episode, we spoke a lot about your personal background and your what led you to join Masonry and your involvement. But we didn't really talk about the fact that I hear you're Grand Master or something. So if you wouldn't mind, what led you to the decision to make yourself available for the Grand South and then moving up the line? How did you get to be Grand Master, I guess?
Well, right or not, I'm a little nervous about anybody that clamors for high office in organizations like Masonry. It's not something that I was really interested in doing. There's a Masonic mentor of mine that was the Grand Chaplain for Most Worshipful Al Jorgensen for a number of years. Ted Shrum, he was a Chief Master Sergeant for Fairchild Air Force Base, and he was a dear friend, and he was toward the end of his life, and he made me promise him, and I reluctantly promised him that I would make myself available for the Grand South. And I said that I would, but I would only do it once. And that it was not something that I was going to chase. And that if the brothers, wanted to go another direction, there's certainly a lot of other areas that I can be of use to. And there's lots of work to do. And Ted passed away prior to the annual communication, and lo and behold, I became Junior Grand Warden. And I still, about once a month, I go see my wife Martha and I go see his widow, and I think about Ted frequently. But that's the reason why, is it was a promise to a Masonic mentor, Ted Shrum. That's why.
So do you feel like he saw something in you that you didn't see, or why do you think he elicited that promise from you?
I don't have the slightest idea.
Fair enough.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to venture to guess. It would probably just be an ego feeding proposition if I were going to flesh that out.
Robert, had he ever pursued the Grand South in Washington himself?
I'm sorry?
Your mentor there, Ted, had he ever volunteered? Had he ever tried to take the Grand? No, he hadn't.
No,
okay.
He had not. He'd served in a number of. He'd been asked to, and had said no. But he had served as, goodness sakes, Grand Chaplain and Grand Marshal for, I think, 6 or 7 different Grand Masters.
Okay.
Well, it's interesting that the quiet conversations that happen in corners of places, but I remember distinctly the day. I've known you for a long time, Most Worshipful, a somewhat long time, and there's people that I'll toot your horn. There's people that we admire, and especially from a distance, and we see them when we go boy, they're really quality people. I'm not going to try and steal your thunder of your message, but your actions spoke for you. And so I saw you and I thought, wow, what an opportunity to aspire to be like someone like that. And I remember I was literally sitting in this chair that I'm at now, scrolling through the letters of the statements of availability, thinking, yep, not to disparage the other candidates that, okay, yep. They're running. And I scrolled up and I saw your face and name. I literally jumped out of my seat here and said, I screamed, yes! And Lynn, my wife, said, what's everything okay? I said, Roger's running for the Grizz.
Very kind.
I was very excited to see that occur, and one of those kind of about time, but thank goodness opportunities. And again, not to disparage the other guys, we have some quality men that make themselves available. But it was just, and I've had that it's not occurred. I mean, I didn't know Chris Haynes was going to make himself available at the same time as well. And Chris, we're very fortunate in Washington to have really quality men make themselves available.
I think we're going to have 5 make themselves available. The deadline is midnight tonight, and I think we've got 5.
Wow.
Which is great. I think the plenary needs to have as many choices as possible. It's marvelous. It really
That's
is.
Great. That's great.
Especially now that the voting goes faster than it used to. Back in the old days when we were all lining up with cards.
Yeah, hand counting ballots. Yeah.
Yeah, my first few years of that, it was a daunting process to watch that happen. Yeah. So you get into the South. Had you already, other than your prompt from your mentor, had you had other prompts or had you thought about what you might want to do or been talking with the other electeds, or how did that whole piece kind of come together?
Well, I personally think it's a bit of a disservice to ask men who make themselves available, what are you going to do as Grand Master? Because it's like mercury on a table. You don't know. It's not going to be the same Grand Lodge 3 years from now that it is now. And because hopefully it's not, because there's going to be growth, there's going to be attention, there's going to be action. And if there isn't, then you haven't been doing your job. The committees haven't been doing their job. And so in answer to your question, and you were a part of this, and not to build a mutual admiration society, but the framework of how I'd envisioned Grand Lodge, at least the areas that needed attention, were largely developed in that Tiger team south of Olympia, goodness, 7 or 8 years ago that you led, where we, for all intents and purposes, distilled on whiteboards, I think it was maybe 30 guys, as to what we thought the 6 supports were of Masonry at the macro for Grand Lodge and the micro for lodges. What were the 6 most important areas that needed to be addressed? And for one reason or another, I mean, we've had some things happen, like, the pandemic, other priorities came in. Maybe somebody didn't think that this was the right initiative or what have you. And these got parked for a couple of years. When I came to the Grand South, I started talking about them. I made them very much, I don't want to say my campaign platform, but I said, these really should not languish. We had like 30 guys from around the grand jurisdiction talked about these, and they're just as relevant today as they were, 4 or 5 years ago. And I mean, they are consistent, Masonic education, the membership experience, technology, beyond the lodge, philanthropy. I mean, those things are still they're still important, and they're very much like the VMAT program in Scottish Rite. They're identifiable, they're specific, they're time bound. You can achieve these things just by taking little bites. And so that's, I know this is a very long answer, but this is the crux of the issue. So I just looked at those 6 areas and said, I'm going to focus on these 6 issues. I don't know which of them we're going to address in the next 4 years, but the ones that get the least amount of attention, those are the ones when I'm in the Grand East, I'm going to make sure that I pick up the slack. And there's not going to be any scorched earth when I get there. I'm not going to throw out, I'm going to build on everything that we've done going up there. And I'm going to do my best to make sure that the guys behind me feel the same way, so that we're not wasting resources. And I really do feel that the 3 guys behind me, or the line behind me, they feel the same way, so that we're really building on something. I really feel that way. And it feels good. It doesn't feel like an ego-feeding proposition. It really feels like we're listening, and that we're really trying to build something that everyone can be proud of. So I hope that answers your question, but it's not a hip pocket answer. It's a deep, complicated issue, and it needs to be a very thoughtful response.
Which weaves directly into your theme, your message this year. It's not just a few words. It's not just 3 words. It's a deep meaning behind that. And so I appreciate that it's even more than what you've written in your message or that you've talked about so far, that there's some history there as well to all, which I can hear in your voice, and I can hear in your actions, I see in your actions and over the years as well. But can you talk a little more about, or talk more into your theme and how you chose that? And
Well, my theme is, I was really struck by Most Worshipful Ed Woods using Latin for his know thyself. It speaks to having to study, and Masons are about having to study. It's not just a social club. It is about erudity. It is about philosophy. It is a thinking man's, I don't want to call it, it's a fraternity. It's a thinking man's brotherhood. And so I wanted something that was in Latin, but also, I don't want to say a double entendre, but also spoke to my background. And truth is, if I didn't go to college, if I hadn't been born with a gift of gab, I'd be slinging French fries for a living. Okay. And so more than words needed to have, that was part of it. And More Than Words also spoke to my favorite philanthropy, which is the early life speech and language philanthropy for Scottish Rite. We take children 2 to 7 that can only grunt more often than not, and we provide free speech and language therapy for these children at no charge. And in like a year and a half, almost with 100% success rate, you can't shut them up afterwards. They get scholarships. They become valedictorians. They're marvelous success stories. So the other part of that is, beyond words, more than words, magis quam verbis is my theme. And it speaks to, more than words is the symbols of Freemasonry. Why symbols? Well, symbols, that's beyond all languages, all continents. It's universal in its context. So the symbols of Freemasonry, plus it's open to so many different interpretations, and the subconscious. Symbols can mean so many different things to me that may not have the same meaning to you, and they may mean, your meaning may not mean the same thing to me. Of the beehive, as Matt Appel and I were just talking about the beehive prior to this taping. The more than words, the obligations that we speak at the altar 3 different times, actually more than that, but they're not just ramblings that we parrot to get admission into a social club. They are commitments, solemn commitments before our Creator and our brothers as to how we're going to live our lives. More than words is how we're going to act outside of the lodge. I've said many times, would a person know that I'm a Mason without my rings, or without my Masonic license plates, or without my Masonic tattoos, by the way I carry myself or by my language? I'll tell you, and it embarrasses me to say it on record, there are many times where I'm ashamed of the way that I behave, or that I've spoken in public. I hope people don't know I'm a Mason. The way that I behaved in traffic. Oh my goodness, I've got a Masonic license plate on. I just gave somebody the bird, or you know what I mean, or I barked at someone, or I behaved in less than a Masonic fashion, and I'm ashamed of myself because I've come up short. So it is more than words, and so it's probably way more, but I think for me, and I speak only for myself right at this moment, I'm not speaking for the Grand Lodge of Washington or for the 8,000 or so Master Masons in the Grand Lodge of Washington, but only for myself. I think that I need to be very hard on myself and just ask others to hold themselves accountable.
Well, isn't that part of what Freemasonry is designed to do, to be that identification opportunity for the mistakes that we've made, whether it's our fraternity, or your faith background, or whatever system of morality that you've placed in there as a filter to say, I know I should be doing this. Yes, I made a mistake, but I can correct myself or be better next time. And at least we have that opportunity, that filter, if you will. And a lot of people don't have that, or choose not to participate in that. Again, whether it's faith-based or fraternal-based or whatever system of morality you have. If they have any kind of system of morality, maybe they have some other. But anyway, it's nice to have that there so that you can identify and say, oh, yes, I made a mistake. How can I correct myself or be better next time, potentially?
Sure. I'm going to turn on a studio light, if you will, which is a dome light in my canopy of my truck, because it's getting so dark in here that, there we go. Thanks.
There we go.
So Roger, going into your year then, what's the priority? What's the one thing that you want to work on above all else? I don't know if that's the right question or not, but I mean, I know you had your ideas coming in. You've had 3 years previous to kind of, see what's on the ground in front of you. How are you approaching things now?
There isn't just one thing. It's probably 2 or 3. We lost probably about 600 Masons starting in about March of 2020.
Okay.
That went NPD for a number of different reasons. And on Friday, about 600 different letters went out to Master Masons that either demitted or went NPD, asking them to come back home. And I will get dinged by jurisprudence for it, because I violated Washington Masonic Code by doing it. And I promise never to do it again. But it directs lodges to have them back for $100 or less. And if it's been more than 2 years, of course, they have to go through the petition process and a background check. But ask them to come back. And, maybe they all won't stick. But it was a very unusual time, probably that we haven't seen in 100 years in this country. And I'd like to have those Masons come back. I think Grand Lodge, right or wrong, has spent an inordinate amount of time the past 20 years focusing on membership. And it's not Grand Lodge's job to make Masons. It's Grand Lodge's job to make lodges. It's the lodge's job to make Masons. And unfortunately, I think through a series of missteps or a lack of resources or a number of other delinquencies, if you will, lodges have either been unwilling or unable to do that. And so, just like nature abhors a vacuum, I think Grand Lodge does as well. And so Grand Lodge has rushed to try to fill that void to help them find prospects or at least reclaim the narrative. So while we've been doing that, I don't think that membership has necessarily been our problem. It's been NPDs. We don't have a problem of people coming through the front door. We've got a problem of people leading to the back door. And I think more often than not, it's because we've been shoehorning people into, the closest lodge. We've been rushing them through. We've been not taking the time to make sure that a man is not getting into the lodge that provides him with what he's really looking for. And it's usually one of those 6 supports. He's either looking for something of education, of an educational variety, or he's looking for something of the membership experience, or he's looking for something of in the community, a charitable aspect. And so many times we put him in, because it's the closest lodge, or because, whoever's handling the prospects for that district, it's his lodge. And the lodge doesn't meet those expectations. And the guy, after 100 hours, 90 hours of work on the part of the lodge, of going through all the degree work, getting him all set up and getting him to prove up. And after about 2 years, the guy just disappears. And he never tells you why. He just stops coming. That's sad. It really is sad. And so that's probably my biggest concern. We got to stop that. I think that's worse than not answering the door when a guy knocks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm really enamored with the Path Forward program.
Oh yeah,
it's a wonderful. The guys are laughing. Matt's laughing at me because I talk about it almost as much as I talk about stealing ideas from Canada, or BC Yukon at least anyway. There's so many ideas that I love, and it lays it out. It tells you these are the core characteristics that Freemasons and men that they've asked: the ability to improve the quality of life for people in our community, having fun and socializing, and the opportunity to form deep and lasting friendships regardless of race, religion, culture, geography, just to name a few. And it goes on and on. And not only is that interesting and desirable for the men seeking it, it's also desirable for those that are already involved. Yes.
Yeah.
And so if we scrap the 6 supports and just said, do these things, it would be successful as well. Or better yet, incorporate those into the 6 supports.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I wish it was like Curly, just one thing, but it's not one thing, and it's not going to be one thing at the end of this year. It's not going to be one thing 6 months from now because there's emergent issues.
Indeed, we got I for one am excited to see what happens I was going to say over the next year, but I guess it's only the next 10 months at this point. the hour continue the clock continues ticking while we're even over the summer here. So unfortunately, I feel we've reached the end of about another half-hour episode. So I want to reinforce what you've said about the more than words, about us as Masons. There's a story I want to tell there, but it's too long for now. So about us as Masons living out the obligations that we've taken, the intent of Masonry. I forget where I read it somewhere that, let's stop arguing about what makes a good man and go out and be one. And I think that's at least some facet of what you're saying about your program there. And anyway, I said we're going to stop talking, and then I started talking. So in short, on behalf of Craig and David and myself, Grandmaster, thank you very much for being here this evening. We appreciate you sitting out in your car with your dome light on and talking with us. Thank you, sir. And we want to thank all of you for listening to the Working Tools podcast. Goodbye.